in order to conquer the world and destroy the Jews. At this point, Jesus will return to save God's chosen people, the Jews. And when Jesus returns, there'll be something called the rapture, where all Christians will immediately ascend to heaven. Okay? So the rapture. All right? Okay? So again, Christian Zionism is working off Jewish eschatology, but it's making some important changes. Okay? So another way of saying this is, in the beginning, Zionists and Christian Zionists will work together to reach a certain point of history. Okay, what we call the Great Israel Project. But then they will diverge and fight against each other. Okay? So they're allies now, but eventually they'll turn against each other. All right. So now I want to talk about the Freemasons. Because the Freemasons, we'll talk more about the Freemasons later, okay? The Freemasons are also working within the Christian Zionist context. But they are much more focused on actually how to implement this, okay? So what they want to do is they want to take the Antichrist and turn it into a system. And this system we discussed last semester is called Pax Judaica. What is Pax Judaica? Pax Judaica is that Israel controls the world through AI, okay, an AI surveillance state, okay? Or their exact words is Holy Empire. And Pax Judaica, the Mexican state, will have things such as the Mark of the Beast. And what is the Mark of the Beast? It is digital ID. Okay, and this digital ID will also lead to digital currency. And they can actually put a microchip or a QR bar in your forehead, and this will be considered the Mark of the Beast, okay? And it's all part of the Christian Zionist eschatology. Another really important thing about the Freemasons is the idea of a one world government. Because remember, the Antichrist is the leader of a one world government. And it'll be based in Jerusalem, okay? And so the headquarters will be Solomon's Temple, or the Third Temple. So these are the, and then you have the Islamic eschatology, okay? The Islamic eschatology is a response to all these other eschatologies, where they say that when the system is created, it'll be called Dajjal, the Antichrist, okay? And when this happens, then Jesus will return to defeat the Antichrist. That's the mainstream Islamic eschatology. Then you have the Shia. Okay, the Shia are the Iranians, where they believe that it will be the 12th Imam Mahdi who will lead the followers. Okay, the Ummah. Okay, Ummah just means community of believers, into victory against the Antichrist, the Dajjal, okay? So you can see how these eschatologies are basically lining up together, right? The Shia are the Iranians. The Islamic is the entire Arab world, right? Now, there are two more eschatologies I want to look at. And again, I know this is still a lot. I know this is too much information, and we'll go over these eschatologies specifically as we move along, okay? But I just want to introduce the different eschatologies. Another eschatology that's very important is the Catholic eschatology. And the Catholic eschatology, we can call City of God, okay, which is the church, which is Jerusalem. And so St. Augustine talks about this, about how the Catholic Church, it is the millennium, it is the Messianic age, because we represent God, and we bring peace and prosperity to the world. Now, what's important about the church is that it became the dominant power in the world because Rome fell, okay? So Roman Empire collapses, but this is all part of God's divine plan, because Roman Empire, Rome, was the city of earth, okay, of power, of money, of wealth. And what matters is Jerusalem, the city of God, of spirituality, of divinity, okay? Now, the city of God came to the end. These are the rise of the Protestants and the Anglo-American Empire. So for the Catholic Church to achieve its eschatology and establish again the city of God, what they need to do is also see the Anglo-American Empire destroyed, just like the Roman Empire. Okay? So that is the Catholic eschatology. The last eschatology I want to discuss is the Orthodox eschatology. And what's the Orthodox eschatology? The Russians. Okay? This is called the Third Rome prophecy. Okay? The Third Rome prophecy is basically that Moscow will become the Third Rome. Okay? The first Rome was Rome. Second Rome was Constantinople. The third Rome will be Moscow. And also, what's really important to appreciate is that there will be no fourth Rome. So when Moscow becomes a third Rome, history ends. Okay, and peace and prosperity will come to the world. Okay, so what does this mean? It means that Russia will unite the Orthodox world. Okay, so right now the Orthodox world is split into Eastern Orthodoxy and Greek Orthodoxy. Okay, and something that is very important that this prophecy says is that the Russians will defeat Turkey in a war, and then have the Greeks return to Constantinople, which is modern-day Istanbul. Okay, that's what the prophecy says. And so you look at all these different eschatologies, okay? And again, guys, this is the majority of the world, right? If you actually look at their convergence points, you come to some startling conclusions, okay? So let's look at the convergence, right? Where do they converge? Okay, well, first of all, okay, where they converge is that the greater Israel project will be achieved, okay? Pax Judaica will be achieved. It's a one world government, okay? One world government. That is one major convergence. If that's true, then another convergence is the Al-Aqsa Mosque will give way to the third temple. All these eschatologies either say this or are indifferent to saying this, okay? They're not opposed to this, all right? So that's why I predict the Al-Aqsa Mosque will be destroyed because they need to build a third temple. Another thing in which they converge is the rise of anti-Semitism. Why? Because that will force the Jewish diaspora, to return to Israel. This is very important for this eschatology, okay? Another important convergence point is the war of Gog and Magog. We don't actually know what this is, but this war is supposed to be the final war before the return of God, before the end of history, before the end of the world, okay? What this war is, we don't know yet. But another thing is that this war in Iran will lead to the war of Gog and Magog at some point. Okay? What this war is, we'll discuss at a later time. Another thing that's very important is US and China are not part of this eschatology. Okay? This is where everyone agrees. For whatever reason, the United States is not going to partake in future events. Neither will China, which means that something will happen to these two countries that will make them not significant anymore, okay? And the best prediction for the United States then is civil war, right? Okay? Civil war, okay? And this is where all these eschatologies converge. So in other words, this war in Iran is happening so that these different eschatological traditions can achieve heaven and earth from their perspective, right? So what this means, so given this convergence, we can actually predict certain events that will happen over the next 2 to 4 years, okay? Because they all want these things to happen together, right? So let's look at some predictions, okay? The first prediction, of course, is that the US will use ground, because using ground troops will create a national draft. And what does a national draft do? It creates a civil war, right? A lot of young people are going to refuse to fight in this war. And this is going to create protests. Then America will have no choice but to deploy the National Guard. And this will create the recipe for a lot of civil conflict in America. Okay? Another thing that will happen is because you use ground troops, you will lose the war, and then CENTCOM, which is the American military in the Middle East, will then transfer over to Israel. What's happening in this war is that the economies of the GCC are being destroyed, and that's part of the plan. Okay? Because for Israel to achieve the Greater Israel project, it needs to absorb the GCC and parts of Turkey and parts of Egypt. Okay? So another way of saying this is that the GCC is basically finished. The intention is to collapse their economies and make them irrelevant. All right? The third thing we can expect is that Turkey will enter this war, and Saudi Arabia actually will enter the war, because you want to use this war to weaken opposition to these eschatologies as much as possible. Okay? So Turkey and Saudi Arabia will enter this war, and they will suffer tremendously because of their participation. Again, the Al-Aqsa Mosque will be destroyed. Okay?
Presto. Salve. Condo. Ain. Ain. Condo. Presto. Aero. Caedo. Correctus. Condo. Ain. Ain. Impero. Condo. Salve. Sane, correctus. Ain. Pabulo. Presto. Pabulo. Ain. Salve. Pabulo. Impero.
Condo. Pabulo. Impero.
Condo. Pabulo. Condo, 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 condo.
Ein. Porro. Commita. Pugno.
Presto. Caedo.
Salve. Sane. Ein. Ein. Impero. Porro. Ein. Corretto. Presto. Sane. Presto. Salve. Corretto. Ein. Correctus. Sane. Correctus. Impero. Commita. Pugno. Presto. Sane. Correctus. Ein. Correctus. Sane. Presto. Foglio.
Ein.
Condo. Corretto. Caedo. Impero.
Impero. Condo. Condo, condo, condo. Condo. Odio. Salve. Condo, 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 condo. Odio.
Ein. Sane. Ein.
Ein. Secondo, secondo. Salve. Presto, condo.
Ein. Convinta. Presto. Ein. Sane. Vero? Ein. Ago. Sane. Ago. Sane. Ein. Sane. Ein.
Ein. Condo. Salve. Condo. Ein. Condo.
Ein. Pugno. Gommita. Porro. Pugno. Porro.
Impero.
Vero. Gommita. Pugno. Porro. Ago.
Salve.
Presto. Sane.
Ein.
Sane.
Salve.
Ein.
Same. Corretto. Quando? Podio.
Presto. Impero. Odio.
Ein. Impero. Quando? Quando?
Salve.
Quando?
Ein.
Quando? Podio. Quando? 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 Quando?
Presto.
Presto.
Condo. 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 Caedo. Ein. Impero. Condo.
Ai? Impero? Quando?
Presto.
Salve. Nati. Condo. 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 Ai.
Salve.
Ein. Condo. 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 Condo.
Presto. Salve.
Quando? Quando? Impero? Quando?
Ein. Ai. Pugno. Presto. Ago. Sale. Presto.
Quando?
Presto.
Quando? Vero? Nein? Salve. Quando? 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 Quando?
Ein Ago. Vero?